Which players am I avoiding in my redraft fantasy drafts this year? We'll talk about that in today's video. As always, guys, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and join our Discord, guys. It's free. During the season, you can ask questions, trade questions, start sit, waiver wire stuff. Anything that comes to your mind, you can ask it there, as well as ask us when we go live. But join our Discord. Also, if you want to get into a real money league with us and our listeners, that's the place to go to get you set up there. A couple of days ago, I put out a video and I went through rounds 1 through 10. And for each round, I highlighted one player that I'm trying to target to get on my team where I love the value of where they're going in that round. And here, today's video, we're talking about rounds 1 through 10, which players I'm avoiding in each and every round. Now, it's always tough when talking about these guys because I don't dislike these players that much. Round 1, I was almost actually thinking about even just avoiding completely. But right now, this is consensus redraft, half PPR ADP, Puka Nacua, round 1, pick 8. And again, I love Puka Nacua. I have no problem taking him in round 1. When I look at round 1, everyone's awesome. He's probably the guy I'm most worried about, him and maybe Ashton Genty, just because he's a rookie. But and the only reason I bring this up is because the Stafford back injury stuff. And I'm starting to think that this back injury is a little bit more serious for Stafford than they're letting on. I know they're trying to play it off like it's nothing, but when they start talking up like Jimmy Garoppolo and how much they love Jimmy Garoppolo and how awesome he is, that makes me think like they're kind of planning to when they have to release the news that Stafford's going to miss some time and say, hey, but we have Jimmy Garoppolo who's awesome. That's just kind of the vibes I'm getting. I still think Jimmy Garoppolo will be able to move and be serviceable in that offense just because I believe in McVay and the offense. I do think it kind of brings everyone down a little bit, and it makes me less excited about a guy like Puka Nacua if Matthew Stafford's not there. So that's just something to think about. If it turns out that Stafford's healthy, I have no problem with Puka Nacua whatsoever. In round 2, it's Brock Bowers, and I tend to play – I don't really take tight ends very early in drafts. It was very rare where I had Travis Kelce on my fantasy teams over the last few years, just because I was never willing to take him with a first round pick or early second round pick. Brock Bowers, year 2, is already up to close to Kelce levels, right? And I just want to caution everyone: is Brock Bowers the best tight end in the league? Probably. I mean, there's an argument to be made, right? Should he be going here in non-tight end premium leagues and half PPR leagues? I don't think he should be going this high, to be honest, man. Like, even if he repeats what he did last year, I think it was like 15 and a half PPR points per game. That's still not going to warrant him going pick 17 early to mid second round, in my opinion, over some other players like Achane, Brian Thomas, Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Drake London. It's not going to warrant it. He needs to do Kelce-like numbers. Just because maybe he's the best tight end in the NFL, just because he's potentially the tight end 1, doesn't mean he's Travis Kelce from like 2020 to 2022 when Kelce was on that incredible run where I think Kelce had a year of over 18 points, over 16 and a half, and over 20 points, I believe, Kelce was averaging. I don't think Brock Bowers is going to get to those levels. The Raiders are not going to throw the ball as much. I think they were top 5 last year in pass attempts. That's not going to happen. They have a better quarterback. Yes, Brock Bowers can catch more touchdowns and make up for, maybe the lack of having a little bit less catches than he did last year. But I'm just going to pass. If I'm going to take a tight end that high, I like the value of Trey McBride more and George Kittle more. I mean, to me, it's a toss-up. Who's tight end 1 this year in fantasy in 2025 between Bowers, George Kittle, and Trey McBride? And so I'm just going to lean towards getting one of those guys in the 3rd or 4th round rather than spending a mid to early second-round pick on Brock Bowers. Love the guy, but just a little bit too rich for my blood. Ladd McConkey going at the 301, pick 25, round 3. And again, is this because I don't like Ladd McConkey? No, but I just look at a lot of it has to do with the other players going around him, and I would lean towards these type of players: Chase Brown, Kyron Williams, Trey McBride if I wanted a tight end, Tyreek Hill potentially, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Breece Hall. There's a lot of players in that late second, early third round, early to mid third round that I would prefer over Lad McConkey. This has nothing to do with Keenan Allen coming in, although I don't love it for Lad McConkey just because I still think Keenan Allen is a decent player. He has that. He has that rapport with Justin Herbert as well. I mean, you look at Keenan Allen last year. Yeah, it was a down year, but he was still had almost 5 catches a game, which is significant. He had 120 targets last year. Like it wasn't like Keenan Allen just like fell off a cliff. He was still decent on a pretty bad team. So I'm not necessarily worried I'm not worried about McConkey because of Keenan Allen. I don't love it, but it's just I don't think the Chargers are going to throw the ball that much. I'd be surprised if they threw the ball much more than 30 times a game. I think they're going to try and run the ball, over 600 times this year. Now, their left tackle did get hurt, which sucks and kind of takes away from that plan of just playing that smash mouth football. But again, you kind of like follow the pieces of the puzzle, right? They bring in Mekhi Becton, to play guard for them, who was on the Eagles last year. They drafted Amari Hampton. They brought in Najee Harris. Like this team wants to run the hell out of the ball and throw the ball in efficiently. And could Lad McConkey be kind of similar to what he did last year? Sure. I think I prefer some other players around here. I'd much rather have Lad end of third round, but rather than beginning of the third round. Into round 4. Now, I'll be honest, round 4, I kind of love. I mean, right now, it's Joe Burrow, who I'm not going to normally take quarterbacks that don't run the ball this high, but if you want to take Joe Burrow, I'm not going to argue. It's Joe Burrow, Devontae Adams, Amarion Hampton, Alvin Kamara, Mike Evans, Terry McLaurin, Marvin Harrison Jr., Kenneth Walker, Chuba Hubbard, DJ Moore, James Conner, and DK Metcalf. I really like the 4th round, and it was tough to put someone on here. I went with Mike Evans mostly because of, the age issue. He's going to be 32 here soon. Now, I know Devontae Adams is also 32 years old, but I just trust that Rams offense a little bit more in McVay to kind of scheme his guys open. I don't know. It just feels like the drop off for wide receivers starts, elite wide receivers usually starts around 31, 32 years old. Like that's kind of when it usually starts. And so could we just kind of see that drop off from Mike Evans? Are they going to do whatever they can to get him 1,000 yards? Yes. But they tried to do that last year and he just barely hit 1,000 yards. Now I know he missed a lot of time and things like that. He still had over 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns. I just think like with a crowded receiving room coming in, you still have Godwin there. They drafted Emeka Ibuka, who I think is very good. Jalen McMillan was coming on last year. Mike Evans, maybe some injury concerns. I think I'm just going to pass and avoid it, fully acknowledging like I think he can still be very good and still be a top 15 wide receiver. You're going to need a little bit more of a repeat from Baker Mayfield as well, but I'll probably just pass and go with a guy like maybe a Marvin Harrison Jr. with more upside, or, a DK Metcalf or Kenneth Walker or something like that. Again, I could be completely wrong on that, but I think I'm going to hedge my bets a little bit and avoid a guy like Mike Evans, who is getting up there in age, a bit of a crowded receiving room. And so I think I'll just pivot to another option. In round 5, it's Zay Flowers for me. If Zay Flowers is on a different team other than the Ravens, I love him. I love Zay Flowers. I think he's an awesome, awesome player. But like, we got to be honest with ourselves and look at it and just say, hey, Zay Flowers in a points per game in his rookie year, he averaged 12.9 PPR points per game, 32nd, wide receiver 32. In 2024, he averaged 12.3, wide receiver 36. He's been a wide receiver 3 each of his first 2 years in the NFL. And actually, in points per game, he was slightly better as a rookie. So the fact is, he's been a wide receiver 3 in points per game. Yeah, maybe he finishes top 25, but when you look at actual points per game, you get a little bit more of the truth. And again, this is coming off. Like, what more can we expect from Lamar Jackson as a passer than what he did last year? I don't think we're going to see a better season for Lamar Jackson passing the ball than almost 4,200 yards and 41 touchdowns. 41 touchdowns, 4,200 yards. And Zay Flowers had 4 touchdowns, I believe it was. 4 receiving touchdowns. That's all he had was 4 receiving touchdowns. Does he get some rushes? Yeah, about once every other game or so. Not enough to really move the needle. He put up over 1,000 yards. But again, like, that 4,000 yards for Lamar Jackson is a little bit of an outlier. Like Lamar Jackson last year, yards per game, 254. Before that, his best was 240. And honestly, he was closer to about 215, 210, 215 yards per game. And he jumped up by a significant amount last year. Could that happen again? Sure. But again, you have Rashad Bateman there. You have Mark Andrews there. The offense revolves around Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. I don't see it for Zay Flowers. Lamar is the MVP. It's his team. The team runs through him. It runs through Derrick Henry. And I don't see a better passing season than what we saw from Lamar last year. I think we get closer to what he's been more in his career, where I would bank on closer to 3,700 yards for Lamar and 30 to 35 touchdowns. And that's still a really good season, but that's not what he did last year. And Zay Flowers, I think, is going to suffer from that. So sucks. I like the player. If he's on a different team, I'm kind of all in on him, but he's just not on the best team for fantasy wide receivers. Just hasn't been since Lamar's been the quarterback. Round 6 is Baker Mayfield. Again, my quarterback philosophy is generally, I don't really start thinking about quarterback till right around round 8. That's when I at least start thinking about it. And I try to push it closer to round 10, to be honest, before I start looking at my quarterbacks. I just think the quarterback position is so deep. I don't want to take a quarterback in round 6 when I can get guys like Jamison Williams, Teteroa McMillan, Caleb Johnson, Calvin Ridley, George Pickens. Like, you can still get really good starters for your team. I don't want to take a quarterback that early, especially in a guy that doesn't run. If I'm going to take a quarterback that early, it's going to be a rushing quarterback. It's going to be a Lamar, a Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen, a Jalen Hurts, guys like that, Justin Fields. I'm not going to say Justin Fields that high, but I target rushing quarterbacks, or I just double tap kind of guys like a Justin Herbert, Jared Goff type of players who I think could be top 7 or 8, probably closer to top 12-ish. And I just bank on one of those guys just giving me stability and low-end QB1 numbers. And not being that far off from a guy like Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was incredible last year. Don't get me wrong. I love Baker Mayfield. I love that he's kind of found a resurgence here. But holy crap, did he put up numbers? 4,500 passing yards, 41 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. And by the way, pretty good on the ground too, which was not really anything that we got from Baker Mayfield before. 22.2 yards on the ground and 3 rushing touchdowns. His previous yards per game rushing was 10. Previous high was 10.3 in 2020. He was more of a 7 to 10 yards per game, not 22.2. 22.2 yards rushing per game is significant, guys. If you play in 4 point per passing touchdown, that's over half a touchdown a game you're getting from on the ground, right? So you're getting an extra touchdown every 2 games from his rushing production. Maybe that stays, I don't know. It's a little bit of an outlier in his career. Again, like for him to expect anyone to throw for 40 touchdowns is unrealistic. So I'm just going to pass on Baker. I'm going to let someone else take him. I think if you're taking Baker here, you're kind of expecting what he did last year. And I just don't think that's going to happen again. Round 7, and before we get into round 7, guys, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button if you're new to the channel, and of course, join our Discord. Jordan Addison, this comes a lot in lieu of the suspension that he's going to get. Sounds like he's not going to fight it, which is fair and fine. So we lose Addison for 3 games, and I know a lot of people come from this mindset. It's like, well, it's only 3 games, but then you start thinking about it. Most people play in a 14-week. In a 14-week regular season in fantasy football regular season. And you think about 3 games, that's over 20% of your regular season gone, right? Over 20%. You love to get off to a hot start and all that stuff. So you're not going to have Jordan Addison. And by the way, we're talking about round 7 here. So even if you play in the shallowest of shallow leagues, you start a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. That's 7 players, guys. These are still starters. Round 7 are still starters in the shallowest of shallow leagues. And if you play in deeper leagues, then, even more so, right? But even in the shallowest of leagues of just a 1 flex, 2 running backs, 2 wide receiver type of league, Jordan Addison is is being drafted as a starter still. Now, does this continue to fall a little bit because of the suspension? Maybe. Another thing I look at as well is I look at the schedule. I always do this with injuries and suspensions and stuff, and I say, okay, you got to look at okay, when are you going to feel comfortable playing Jordan Addison? So you get Jordan Addison, who I believe did play in the preseason, which is good. Get him some reps in the preseason. That game's actually going on right now. I didn't say the date; it's August 9th. But you look at the Vikings schedule. So Addison misses the first 3 weeks, and then they get Steelers and Browns their first 2 weeks back. And again, you're talking about a rookie quarterback, JJ McCarthy, who we still a bit of a wild card. Now I know people are going to say, well, yeah, we thought that about Sam Darnold, but Sam Darnold was not a rookie, first of all, right? He was not a rookie. Sam Darnold had experience. He was a top draft pick. He had all the arm talent in the world. Like, I think it's disingenuous to just say, well, Sam Darnold did well, so JJ McCarthy is going to do well, because Darnold had all the tools. It was more just he just was never in the right environment. We don't know if McCarthy has all the tools. I think he does, but we don't know. So, anyways, you get JJ McCarthy, who, by the way, is going to Europe. This is a game in Dublin, Ireland, playing the Steelers, one of the better defenses in the NFL. Are you going to feel comfortable starting Jordan Addison? Maybe yes, maybe no, maybe not. So then you start him for the Browns, right? Okay, you probably feel comfortable starting him against the Browns, and then they're on bye. So it's like, okay, I get 3 games of suspension, but I might not feel comfortable starting Addison his first week back against the Steelers. And then I get 1 game, and then he gets a bye. So we're talking about in the first 6 weeks of the season, guys, you get 1 game out of Jordan Addison. So a 3-game suspension really kind of turns into more of like a 5-game suspension if it plays out the way that I said, right? Because of the bye week and because of not feeling comfortable playing him against the Steelers or whatever. And so I think about those things. The 6 weeks, 1 time in 6 weeks, like, that's significant. So I'm just going to avoid him. There's still a lot of good players in round 7 that I like and that I'll take. Guys like a Jerry Jeudy that I really like. Maybe I start thinking about a rushing quarterback here. So still some players that I think I would take over Jordan Addison. Jayden Reed in round 8. I want Jayden Reed to be good. But again, like, even if you play in the shallowest of leagues, this is the first guy on your bench is Jayden Reed. Now, maybe with the right team build, Jayden Reed is the type of player you want. I do think if you have the right build of team where you have a lot of consistency and a lot of players that you can count on, and Jayden Reed is like, all right, when he booms, I win my week because everyone else is going to produce. Maybe Jayden Reed makes sense here, but this is first guy on your bench or last starter for any of you that play in like 3 wide receiver leagues. This is still a starter round 8. So it depends on the type of league you play in. In our leagues that we set up, we like to play in a lot deeper leagues. So it's a lot more fun. You should try it. A lot more skill involved. So we're talking about a guy in Jayden Reed who it seems like it's going to be much similar to what it's been the last couple of years, where it's like he doesn't get on the field that much, like as much as you need him to. He's going to play 60% of the snaps, 50, 60%. Matthew Golden, Romeo Doubs, those type of guys are going to be the wide receivers out there in 2 wide receiver sets. This is all feels like what it's coming out to be and going to play out. And so it's just like, I think I'm just going to pass on Jayden Reed. Maybe I'll take a more consistent option in a Jacoby Myers or Khalil Shakir, or go for my quarterback in this range, or go somewhere else. Like, I don't know. I want Jayden Reed to be a thing, but I think there's just way too much risk involved here. And I think it could be one of those players who, if you're going to be relying on him in your starting lineup, it could just be a little bit painful again. Into round 9, I kind of cheated with this one. Cam Skattebo. I really like Cam Skattebo. I've liked him since, we do a lot of dynasty content, and, we've been scouting these rookies since January, and I really like Skattebo. And I was saying that I think he takes over the job of this Giants backfield very early on within the, by the end of September. That being said, the one thing that's going to hold him back is the injury. So this is a little bit of a cheat, because if he's still injured when we start doing our fantasy drafts in a few weeks, then I don't think Skattebo goes here. And so then the question is not really like avoid him in round 9. again, it's just kind of a cheat thing that I did here, but I'm just gonna say Cam Scatterbo, round 9, with a hamstring injury, a rookie missing time, not getting playing time. It's gonna fall out of favor with the coaches a little bit, especially coaches that need to win. So I probably just avoid Cataboo. I probably just avoid Scatterbo unless he's kind of fully healthy and gets a couple preseason games under his belt. And then round 10 is Johnny Smith. This is another player who probably falls a little bit, in my opinion, but I'm just going to avoid that Steelers tight end room. Like, I think Freiermuth is a good tight end. Um, I think he's a better blocker than Jonnu. I think Jonnu's going to have his role. I think go look at Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith a couple of years ago when Arthur Smith was on the Falcons, and that's the type of production I could see from both those guys. They both were like, flex plays at times, but none of them were like consistent starters. So that's all I have for you guys. In the next video, we're going to be looking at some sleepers, guys drafted after round 12 that I really, really like and want to take a shot on. Appreciate you all. Like and subscribe. See you all in the next video.